As I mentioned earlier in the show, the federal electoral district of Milton East, Halton Hills South has now flipped to a Liberal win due to the validation process, something I had never heard of before this past weekend. But someone who knows all about it is the candidate herself, Kristina Tesser Derksen. I chatted with the MP-elect earlier today and asked her to explain.
I've learned a lot about the electoral process in the past little while. So the validation process is completely standard. It's done with every single riding across the country. So what happens is on election night, it's very busy, as you can imagine. Poll workers have been there for like 15, 16 hours. At the end of the night, they tabulate the votes that have come in. They do it with witnesses present. I have scrutineers there, so do the other parties. And they tally up everything. And they report those numbers that they've tallied to the returning office. So either by phone or maybe in person if they're nearby. Then a few days later, the returning officer who's in charge of the riding has to validate all those numbers that have been reported. And it was my understanding during that validation process where what was explained to me as a typo was discovered, where there had been a mistranscription or a misreporting or something got flipped around. And she caught that, which is the whole point of the validation process. And that required a correction. And that correction resulted in me being ahead by 29 votes.
Wow. Okay. So now we're at the situation where it goes to an official recount, correct? So how does this work and when would we know?
So when the result of the candidate in the lead, if the candidate in the lead is ahead by less than 1/1000th of the total votes cast, which is the case here, there is an automatic judicial recount. So this is a judicial process. It's under the supervision of a Superior Court judge. Both parties will have lawyers present. There will be scrutineers for both sides. It's done under a very controlled environment. Every single ballot that was cast, including ones that had been rejected, will all be reviewed. So everything gets recounted. It's like doing election night all over again. Everything gets recounted, and then we'll have an official result. And we expect that to take probably by the end of next week, we should have a result. So it's going to take a little while, maybe 10 days.
Talk about living in limbo. I mean, how are you feeling here? Because this has to be such an emotional roller coaster for you all through the election process, the election night, now this, and now a waiting period.
It really has been a test of resolve and patience. For sure, election night, as numbers were coming in, we didn't actually have a result on election night, because there was one final poll that had to report, the special ballot poll. So that's what people who had mailed in ballots from overseas and that sort of thing. So that had to still be reported. So it wasn't really until the next afternoon that I found out, okay, the unofficial results appear to have me behind by that 298 vote. And I thought, that's it. That's the way things go in politics. You win, you lose. So that would have been on Tuesday afternoon. And then it was on Friday afternoon that the returning officer herself called me and explained to me what had happened with the validation.
Wow, that had to be just a moment of disbelief. Now you and we've never chatted before, and I want to Tarantino this interview a little bit here, and I want to go back. So, you're someone who's a Milton Town councillor. You run for MPP in the provincial election, came in second, but then you're immediately swept up into a campaign for the federal election. I'm curious, how did that come about? Who approached who to get you into this race in the first place?
I was approached and asked to run. I think part of the reason that I was well placed to run in the federal election is because I had just come out of the provincial. I had a great team of volunteers already set up. My name was already out there to some extent, and they thought I was a good candidate. So it was very easy to say yes when I was asked to run federally because of what's going on right now. Contextually to our country, there's challenges to our very sovereignty, economic threats from the United States, and someone thought I was a good candidate to bring forward and stand up for my country and for my community. And who am I to say no? So I agreed.
I would just figure maybe you would be a tired person at this point, because not only you just went through that, the election run for the province, but on top of that, 4 children, your resume includes real estate lawyer, a funeral director at some point. We don't know here when we talk about you, how you fit it all in. How do you do life?
I've been told I have high energy. I have really good time management skills. My 4 kids that you mentioned are older. My youngest is 19, so they're not quite as labor intensive as they were when they were little, obviously. My funeral service days are behind me. I keep my license active, but I don't actually work in that field anymore. I do have a full-time legal practice. I'm a 2-term Milton Town Councillor, and in the town of Milton, that council position is actually a part-time position. So, you know, the old saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. We have our ways of getting things done. And it's really been a skill that I've crafted over most of my life. You know, I attended law school while my 4 children were quite young. So I think that's when I really learned how to manage my time and prioritize and get the important things done. And somehow things always get done. I don't do it all by myself. I have a wonderful support network. I have an excellent spouse who helps me out. I've got my family close by, wonderful friends. And through these campaigns, amazing volunteers, hundreds and hundreds of volunteers who stepped forward. Most of them had never volunteered on an election campaign before, but just felt compelled and got engaged based on the importance of this election. So I've had a wonderful support team helping me out.